Hello, everyone. Hello. Can you all hear me? Give me a what's up. If you can hear me, thumbs up. Okay, good. I got one thumbs up. Pretty happy about that. Thank you all. Lovely to have you today on this lovely day here. So I'm just getting all set up. So thank you all for joining. My name's Kareem, and I am from Expat Republic. Thank you all for joining today on your lunch break. Expat Republic, we are a media company, and we basically help expats, internationals from all around the world get settled into beautiful Netherlands. Wherever you're from, loads of people come to the country and they want to learn and understand a little bit more about Dutch culture, how to find a house, and kind of really build a new life. I've been in the Netherlands for 15 years, and I must say it's been a beautiful journey. And so what we notice is a lot of people, they move to the Netherlands, they maybe buy a house or even rent a house. Of course, you need to live somewhere, and they decide, it's an interesting property market. Maybe I'd like to, investigate what it's like to get into the buy-to-let and investing properties in the Netherlands. And so it's definitely doable, definitely possible to do. Even if you're a foreigner, even if you're outside the EU, it's no issue. There are, however, some implications to doing that and some rules to follow. The rules of buy-to-let have changed over the years. And so today, what we have is an incredible team from Mr. Mortgage, Egle and Robin, and they are basically the experts in buy-to-let. They're actually a mortgage broker. They can also help you. They also help people with buying their first home, but they also help a lot with the buy-to-let. And so they know all the rules and regulations, and they're the experts. So I'm really appreciative that they are here today. Lovely folks, and they're here to explain to you everything about the buy-to-let process. And so without further ado, I will hand it over to them. Just a couple of things. If you guys have any questions, please put them in the chat, and they will be answered at the end. And of course, if you could just keep your mics on mute, and then at the end in the Q&A, you'll be able to unmute and ask questions if your chat question was not answered or if it was not answered to your satisfaction. Without further ado, I hand it over to the wonderful team of Mr. Mortgage. Thank you so much.
Karim, thank you for the introduction and for the hosting. As always, of course, we're very happy to be here. And thank you for everybody that's joining. Indeed, during your lunch break, enjoy your sandwiches, enjoy your pokeballs, or whatever you're enjoying, enjoy it. And let's get stuck in and discuss mortgages, and more specifically, the buy-to-let. So that basically means how to invest in or rent out your property. So all about investing in real estate, really. Indeed, as Karim already mentioned, we'll walk you through the whole presentation. In the meantime, if you have questions, feel free to put it in the chat, and then we'll walk through all these questions in the Q&A at the end. The presentation is approximately 45 minutes, I think, and then we'll have some time for the Q&A. So let's get down to it. There we go. Well, I'm not doing this on my own. I'm joined by a wonderful team from left to right. Cesar, the founder and fellow financial specialist. Myself, Robin Uijtdehaage. I won't challenge you to pronounce my last name. Then the wonderful Egle, our growth marketeer, helping us to get out there into the world. And my other financial specialist colleague, Uskan, and that's kind of our mortgage Google, if you will. That's the source of all knowledge, basically. We know enough when it comes to Cesar and myself, and Uskan is our wizard right there. So this team is very excited to help you in whatever you want to do when it comes to your mortgages. And for today, we'll discuss everything about investing, so real estate, so buy-to-let and keep-to-let mortgages. Now, to give you an idea of what Mr. Mortgage does, we're a mortgage specialist that help you in guiding you in the house hunting process and advising you in the mortgage brokerage. So basically meaning when you bought a house, the financial side of everything. specifically for expats and internationals. And we have a specialty also in the legal and regulatory considerations. We work with over 30 different mortgage lenders, which basically means that we have a broad range of banks we work with independently, I might add. So we're not linked to any bank. So the only focus we have is on you and to make sure that you get the best available mortgage conditions and interest rates, of course. That being said, we even have a special position with a couple of lenders. And not all lenders fully understand expats and internationals and the service that comes with that. We are an expertise company when it comes to expats and internationals and their finances. So we can get a slightly better interest rate with a couple of lenders when it comes to you, basically. Now, that being said, let's move forward. Our services are surrounding all types of mortgages, whether it's a residential mortgage, so when you buy a property for your own use as your primary residency, or if it's your second home, your third, fourth, fifth home, as long as you live in the property, that's considered a residential mortgage. Not something that we'll dive into too much today, but it is something that is within our range of service, buy-to-let, obviously. So when you buy a property to rent it out, but also keep to let, which means that you already own the property, maybe as your current residency, you want to move somewhere else, keep the property, but then have an investment mortgage, also something we do. Refinance and increase. So it means that when you want to change your mortgage in whatever way, maybe you want to have a renovation done, or you have equity in your property, you want to use that for a very nice holiday or investment opportunities. So that's also what we do when it comes to the increase of mortgage. And we have the tailor-made solutions also for when something happens like a divorce, for instance. Unfortunately, it does happen, and you have to know your way around the mortgage as well, or the other way around if a partner wants to join the mortgage, and also when it comes to holiday homes, for instance. Basically, anything regarding mortgages we can help you out with. Now, before we start, let me explain a bit about what you can expect today. We'll give you an introduction in buy-to-let mortgages, also known as investment mortgage. Let's get that out of the way. Buy-to-let, keep-to-let is basically the same thing. It gets you to an investment mortgage, basically meaning that you have a financing on your home to rent out the property. Now, reasons to invest, so why would you? Good to consider, of course, unique financial benefits that you have, eligibility criteria, the process and timelines, rates and fees, and of course the Q&A as previously mentioned. All right, now let's really get started. Buy-to-let mortgage or an investment mortgage is not a residential mortgage. That is very important to know. There are some differences. Now, what is a buy-to-let mortgage? It's a type of mortgage that is specifically designed to finance properties to rent out to tenants. Makes sense because you buy something to lend it out. But it's good to know that is specifically designed to rent out your property, and that being an investment where you get a return based on the rental income, of course. Now, here's the difference between the two. When you buy a property as a residential property, you get a residential mortgage, and the maximum mortgage that you can get based on the value is 100% loan to value. So when you buy a house for 500,000 euros, value is 500,000 euros. If your income allows it, you can get a mortgage for 500,000 euros. That's different when it comes to a buy-to-let or keep-to-let mortgage, because there it's 70%. So there's a bit lower maximum mortgage that you have to consider. This basically means that you have to consider in your investment strategy that you have to input some of your funds or savings when securing a buy-to-let mortgage. Then the transfer tax, that's a hot topic as well, of course. Regularly, when buying a house for your personal residency, that is, the transfer tax is 2%. When you buy a house for anything else but residential property, for instance, investment purposes, then the transfer tax is 10.4%. With the residential mortgage, you have a regular interest rate as far as that exists, but the regular interest rates you can find online as well. And when it's an investment mortgage, usually there's an added percentage of 0.7 to 1.2% higher. The eligibility of a residential mortgage is based primarily on your income and on the property value. So there, with the residential mortgage, you as a customer are the primary focus of the mortgage loan, your income, your financial situation, and also the value of the property, of course. When it comes to an investment mortgage, the property itself is more the primary focus here. What is the value in rented state? What is the rental income? What are your savings as well to be able to cover potential vacancy of the property that you own? But the property itself, as it is an investment object, that is the main focus of the financing. So those are the main differences right there. Now, keep to let versus buy to let. I already gave it away a bit, but let me show you here. Buy to let is when you buy a property to rent it out. So you don't have it yet, you buy it from the market, and then you rent out the property. Keep to let is when you already own the property, and then you decide to want to rent it out. So you want to keep it as an investment property. For instance, if you currently live in your own house, you want to move to another property, and you keep your current home and you want to rent it out to future tenants, then you can refinance it into keep to let. What is good to keep in mind, buy to let and keep to let are two different processes to get to the same thing. So the mortgage that you will get will be an investment mortgage, and you can either do that to buy a property to rent it out or to keep a property and rent it out. But the mortgage that you will have will be an investment mortgage. So reasons to invest. I can tell you all about this, but Karim, maybe you can start up the questionnaire, because we have a small question, because I'm also curious what your reasons to invest might be. And you can see them right here. A couple of options. For one, for instance, generate passive income. And I see that as twice or diversifying your portfolio. And generate passive income and diversifying your portfolio could also mean different options in the end, right? So there's different options to ways to get to a certain goal that you have. That will be in the next slide, slide tip of the veil. And maybe you can let me know in what area you're interested in to buy a potential investment property in Amsterdam, Eindhoven, Rotterdam, Den Haag, Nijmegen, or somewhere else, because there's more than these 5 cities in the Netherlands, of course. So by all means, feel free to fill that out. I will give you some time to consider. And then let's move forward with the presentation. All right. So yes, thank you for filling it out, everybody that did. And let's move forward, if you're okay with that, Karim. Yes, thank you. Perfect. Oh, here's the results. The majority of you is interested in generating passive income. 60% and 16% both filled out. Thank you so much for filling it out. And when it comes to where you're looking to buy a property, the majority is looking in the Amsterdam area or somewhere else. Makes a lot of sense. Amsterdam is a very nice city to invest in as well. Do have to know a couple of considerations there, of course, but makes a lot of sense right here. Thank you for filling this out. Now, let me not hold you in any more anticipation right here. Reasons to invest, they can range to a broad range of variety, of course. The rental income being the passive income, capital appreciation, meaning that the property value can increase in value as well, right? So then you buy it for a certain amount and you hope and you expect an increase in that value when you sell it again. There's a nice combination between the two as well. But there's also other consideration, portfolio diversification. So when you already have an investment portfolio, but also the other main suspects here, the leverage, inflation hedge, retirement income, of course, tangible assets and property development, all can be reasons to invest. And as mentioned before, it can also be a very nice combination of all of these. This is something that we'll discuss with you as well, what your reasoning is to do this, to make sure that the choice that you make is a valid choice, not only for now, but also for the foreseeable future, and it matches your financial situation and maybe your current investments as well. Now, there are some unique financial benefits.
Just 1 second. I see someone see a blank screen, but I'm not sure if it's for everyone because I see the presentation.
Okay. I see it also.
Maybe, so maybe it's maybe
sign
need to
out.
start and connect.
Yeah, maybe indeed. Thank you for checking in, Egle. And by all means, let me know if it persists. And in any other case, I will try to be as visual in my explanation about it as well. And if anything, if I'm not mistaken, this presentation will also be shared. So then you can watch it back when it comes to the presentation, the slides as well, if you missed out anything. And of course, when there's the chance for the Q&A, let me know if you have any questions. If it's something that we have already discussed, no worries. I will happily answer your questions right there. So, Egle, are we good to move forward?
Yes.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah.
So there's taxes to consider. For one, there's income tax. That's the same kind of tax that you pay on your salary, for instance. But when you rent out your house on the rental income, there's no income tax, but as long as it's not your primary source of income. So if you also have a source of income, such as being employed or self-employed, then there's no income tax. Capital tax, not as long as you have the 30% ruling. So that's a very nice benefit right there. Now, as the majority of you undoubtedly know, the 30% ruling has a 5 years duration at this time. So when the 30% ruling ends, then you will pay asset tax, capital tax, and it really depends on your whole financial situation, to what extent that impacts that, and also your mortgage situation, your investment mortgage will have an impact on there. So we'll happily calculate what the impact that would have for you. But as long as it's the 30% ruling, there's no capital tax. That's definitely very nice to be able to benefit from. Now, you do have the annual property tax as well. It depends on the municipality, but in Amsterdam in 2023, that's 0.0431% of the WZ value. Now, the WZ value is the value that the municipality gives the property. That is an open register where you can see what that is for you or for the potential property that you're looking to purchase and invest in. So the fees. Now, there's different ways to invest in, or the different type of properties you can invest in. You can buy an existing home, but there's also the option to buy a new build property. And there are some pros and cons there. For one, when we look at the property transfer tax, and this is an example where we show the overview of purchasing a 500,000 euros property. When it comes to the property transfer tax, as mentioned before, buying an existing home, it's 10.4% transfer tax, meaning that for an existing home for 500,000 euros, when you buy it for an investment purpose, then the transfer tax is 52,000 euros. But the new build, that is an extraordinary other thing, because new build has never been owned by anybody. And the transfer tax, that's good to keep in mind, transfer tax only applies when there's a transfer of ownership. So that means that if somebody owns the property and you buy it from somebody, then the transfer tax applies, because then there's a transfer of ownership and finances. So then you have to pay transfer tax. When it's never been owned by anybody, then that means that there's no transfer tax, because there's no transfer of ownership. So therefore, new build is 0% transfer tax. Very nice to be able to benefit from. A real estate agent usually charges about 1.2%. So in this case, that would be 6,000 euros for an existing home. New build, usually a real estate agent doesn't come into play, because you register at the constructor, and then there's no real estate agent there. The notary, that does apply. When buying a new build, an existing home, then you have to sign the transfer of ownership and the mortgage deed. Together, combined is about 1,800 euros. New build, you only sign the mortgage deed, because the transfer of ownership, again, does not exist. So therefore, that's it. The valuation report for both is approximately the same amount. The bank guarantee, that covers the 10% security deposit. For an existing home, 500 euros. For a new build, that usually does not apply. And our fee is the same for either situation that you go for, regardless of what kind of type of property you buy, regardless of the amount essentially as well. Then the rental income, that is a big difference, because what I just mentioned, then the new build comes up on top quite significantly, right? But the rental income, of course, is something important to consider, that when you buy an existing home, then the rental income starts right away, of course. When you own the property and you have a rental agreement, somebody can move in directly and you have the rental income. With a new build property, that does not apply. You have to wait, well, it says 24 months here. This is the example where you would have to wait 24 months before the property is built. Now, therefore, you have mortgage interest without tenants. Well, that doesn't apply when having an existing home, because you have somebody that you can have somebody move in directly. But with a new build, you have to wait 24 months. So when you then compare the two, an existing home has an approximate, when buying a house for 500,000 euros, based on the fees, that's about 65,000 euros, 64,599 to be exact. And when you buy a new build, in this example, then it's about 24,040 euros. So that's a difference right there to consider buying a new existing home or a new build property for investment purposes, of course. Now the rates, there's a lot going around about the rates in the interest rates in the Netherlands right now, that it's increasing significantly. But as you can see right here, this is a rate dating from approximately 2004. And we see that the interest rate actually decreased in short. There's a bit of an up, the line is going up now again. That is true, but we've come from significantly higher. So actually what we see happening right now is that the market for the interest rates are kind of stabilizing now. So we don't have that ridiculously low interest rate of the last of about 3-4 years ago, but it's kind of recuperating to a more sane and more healthy percentage, which is also more durable. This also means that when it's more durable, we know that the financial markets are cooling down a bit and is not that frantic anymore. And when it comes to, and therefore there's a more healthy market, there's about 8 mortgage lenders to choose from for investment properties, and the rate starts about from 4.9% right now. And we have to wait and see what the interest rates will do. Now it's good to know what it means when interest rate goes up or down and what the reasoning behind it is. At this time, for instance, some banks are increasing their interest rates, but there's a valid reason for that. Not because there's something happening in the world, not because the ECB, the European Central Bank, or any other bank is having trouble right now. It's simply for the very, very simple reason that the banks are very busy. They have employees that want to go on holiday, and so they have less staff. They increase the interest rate a bit to reduce the workload that they have. So that's the main reason. The expectation is therefore also that in September, end of August or September, the interest rate will drop again to go back to the level, and everybody can go for mortgages again, and the banks won't have the issue with being understaffed. It's a basic, a very clear consideration there. Same usually happens end of the year. That's why the interest rate spiked in December, just because people went on their winter holiday and want to visit family. Interest rate went up just to give people some time off. That's a simple consideration there. That being said, let's move forward. And the eligibility criteria. So how are you eligible to secure a mortgage? The variables that will be considered here are income, of course. Sure, the interest rate, the rental income, sorry. The rental income is the main consideration, but your income is very much considered here as well. Housing costs, so what are the costs for the house that you're buying? So maybe a ground lease and also a homeowners association, for instance, but also what are your current housing costs, so of your current residency. The savings that you have freely available, so liquid savings also. The loan to value ratio, as mentioned before, usually an average of 70% of the property value. As mentioned before, the rental income, expected rental income, and the cost of the buy-to-let mortgage itself, of course. All of this will be considered that you actually make a profit so that the investment is worthwhile. So the process and the timeline. So let's say you start in July, this month. First, we'll check your mortgage eligibility. We do that in a financial analysis, where we look at we take a deep dive in your financial situation. So what is your income? What are your savings? What are your plans? What are the reasons to invest? Where do you want to invest? All of that is something that we'll look into in the financial analysis. That's where we'll start. And we'll discuss that with you in a call of about 45 to 60 minutes. So we can discuss the basics. We can discuss different scenarios, what that apply to you and that you want to know, of course, different locations that you want to buy, for instance, we can consider there as well. And therefore determine your strategy. Then next month, you can basically, next step would be that you can connect to a real estate agent and appraiser and find your property. First, the real estate agent is the most important thing, so they can help you get an understanding of what the rental market is in the location that you're looking to buy and what your options are. Then when your offer got accepted, an appraiser will visit the property. In the meantime, we'll collect your documents and we'll get your mortgage approved. Mortgage application process doesn't necessarily have to take that long. When you look it up online, banks will say about 4 to 6 weeks. I'm not entirely sure what they do the rest of the time. We like to get things sorted for you as soon as possible to make sure that you have peace of mind and the reassurance that your mortgage is approved as soon as possible as well. So usually when it comes to an investment mortgage, the average time is about 2 or 3 weeks when we look at the current holiday season. So that's basically where we are. Then when the mortgage is done, you can go to the notary as soon as the seller is ready to move out, of course. You go to the notary to get everything formalized, receive the keys in your hand, and that's when you can have your tenant move into your property as well. So that's how it works. And then happy days, you've got an investment mortgage, you've got a property, you've got a tenant. So then let the passive income commence. That's basically in a nutshell how the process and the timeline works. Now, this is something that is very basic, of course, when you want to know a bit more about your financial possibilities. As mentioned in the financial analysis, we'll stretch this out and discuss everything in detail, what applies to you personally. So the return on investment, the ROI, this is what it's all about in the end, of course, because you want to know and want to be assured that the investment that you do, that you actually get a return on it. Makes a lot of sense, I think. This is an example or 2 examples of different purchase prices where you can see what your expected return on income is as well. When it comes to a property purchase price of 315, you can see expected rental income, the required funds to be able to buy this. This is including the fees that we just discussed, and also the down payment that is required. Then you have a net return and cash on cash return as well. This is something that we'll look into for you personally as well. And you can see the 2 different scenarios. You can see different net returns, different cash on cash returns. So therefore it's important to know what your goal is, what your expectation is, and what your range is that you want to invest in. And also why it's important to work with the real estate agents as well, because they can help you get an understanding or an expectation of what the expected rental income is, because that will have a direct impact on your net return and your cash and cash return in the end as well, of course. So all of that is something to keep in mind and something that we'll walk you through in our advisement process and guiding you through this endeavor. Now, our pricing, when it comes to buy-to-let, as mentioned before, whether it's for existing home or a new build home, our fixed fee is €3,199. This includes the mortgage advisory, calculation, and mortgage application, of course, and the whole process I just mentioned. And we have, when it comes to keep to let, so when you already own the property and have a mortgage on it, you do a refinancing to an investment mortgage. Again, same applies, mortgage advisory, calculations, and mortgage application. Within this, both of these fees, there's a small down payment we start with of €299 to start off the financial analysis. This is basically to cover the hours that we put in, because when we do the financial analysis, that's when our service really starts. And from that moment on, every time that you want to have a recalculation done, let us know. When you find a property and you've discussed that with your real estate agents as well, we can base our calculations on the other property to make sure that every time that you want to have a recalculation, we can do that. There's not necessarily a maximum duration or a maximum amount of calculations that we have. There's no budget that you can spend in calculations. That's all included in our service. And the remaining fee, so $299 at the start, and the remaining fee is only charged at the very end when the mortgage is approved. So that's basically it. We went through it quite quickly. Usually, it's about 45 minutes, but now we did it in 30, which gives us more time for the Q&A. So by all means, Egle, take it away.
Yeah. Hi, hello. So we're gonna answer all your questions today, and of course, I provided already some resources in the chat, and you also can expect to receive an email from us with some additional resources and video recording if you want to watch a second time. So I will start with the first question. So as I understand, this question is this buy-to-let investment only advisable for the long-term investor only, or what to do for those who want to do only for a few years, for example, for 1 or 2? How does it work?
So a long-term is a subjective term, of course, but 1 or 2 years, I'd say, is a bit too short. And the main reason there is if you consider the transfer tax first off, because that's basically the transfer tax is the fee that you don't get back. You don't get anything back from that, right? So that is 10.4%. So it's nice to have some time to earn back that money. So I'd say 1 or 2 years is a bit too short. Midterm, so let's say about 5 years, 5-6 years, it starts making more sense to invest in real estate. And of course, longer than that, then you have more time to earn back your investment. But let's say about 5 years is about the term that starts making sense to invest in real estate. Significantly less, 1, 2, 3 years, I'd say it's a bit too short.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Can you live in your buy-to-let for a period before letting? So
yeah, I understand. One more addition, by the way, on what I just mentioned, 1 or 2 years. If you want to invest in real estate for 1 or 2 years, and that's what you focused on, there is an option, but then I'd suggest to go for a new build property, because a new build property takes about 1 or 2 years to be constructed. Then you can decide what you want to do with the property. Maybe you want to move in, maybe you want to rent it out, or maybe you want to sell it at that time. Be sure that the developer allows you to sell it then as well. Sometimes there's an investment clause in there, but it's basically what happens with with new build property is usually, that's an important disclaimer, of course, but usually property value increases significantly between the purchase price of when it has to be built still or when it's finished. So that could be an option and when you want to have a shorter term investment in real estate. But sorry, Egle, could you repeat the question?
Oh, so can you live in your buy-to-let property before letting? Mm-hmm.
Yes, you can. That's where the keep-to-let mortgage would come in, or keep-to-let refinancing would come in. What is good to know, as mentioned, when you have a residential mortgage, it's not allowed to rent out your house. But when you have an investment mortgage, it's not considered that you live in the property. So basically, what would happen is you buy the house now, you live in it as your residency. Benefit from a lower interest rate, benefit from the tax return that you have on the interest rate as well, tax benefit on the interest rate that you pay when you use it as a residency. And then when you're ready to rent out a property, then you can refinance it to an investment mortgage, and there you go. So yes, you can, but you need 2 different mortgages for each.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry, can I just ask a quick question there? So when you say that you initially buy it as a property to live in, do you mean buy it as a keep-to-let or buy it as a residential mortgage?
As mentioned, you buy it as a residential mortgage because you're living in the property, so therefore it's your residency, therefore a residential mortgage, and then you change it into a keep-to-let, because again, a keep-to-let and buy-to-let, those are different processes to get to an investment mortgage. So both is an investment mortgage. When you rent out the house, you need an investment mortgage. When you live in the house, you need a residential mortgage. There's no crossover there. So when you have a residential mortgage, the bank won't allow you to rent out the house. When you have a rental investment mortgage, you're not supposed to live in the house.
Hi, I have a quick question here. Is it possible if I can raise my question?
So what I suggest, thank you for checking in, Satyakan. What I suggest is we first take care of the Q&A, that,
Okay.
Egle, and then maybe because then it might already answer your question. And if then that isn't the case, then we'll open up the lines to ask questions
sure.
like that. Yeah, thanks for checking in, Satyakan.
So the next question is like, what's the capital tax rate if there is no 30% ruling?
Yeah, so that's a bit too complicated to get into specifically right now, because it really depends on what the rest of your financial situation is as well. So there's a tax on your asset as an investment property. Top of my head right now, it's 6.29, and of that 6.29, it's 30%. So it's a bit more complicated than that, but there's also a tax-free part in considered there, and the remaining assets will also have an impact. Plus, your mortgage, investment mortgage, will also have an impact, a positive impact on your taxes. So having an investment mortgage will decrease the amount of taxes that you have to pay, but it's not a standard 1+1 calculation. It is significantly more complicated. So to answer that clearly like this is a bit too dependent on your specific situation. But it's top of my head, 30% of 6.9%, 6.29% of the property value. But when you have a specific case, we can calculate that for you.
Thank you. And the next question is like, so someone is already owning a home, and as a couple, they would like to move together before buying a property together. Is it possible to rent out the property for 1 year only?
Yes, you can rent it out for 1 year only, but the only thing is that you do have to rent it, refinance it to an investment mortgage. I know a lot of people don't. People just rent out their house and see if the bank knows it or not. I don't suggest this because then if the bank finds out, they will make you repay the mortgage in one go. And that's then you might have to sell the property, and with the tenant in there, that's a bit of a hassle. So if there's if you want to rent out your house, that has to be changed into an investment mortgage. But in that specific situation that you want to buy a house together, by all means schedule a call with us, because then we can check what the options are. Why I'm changing to this page is when you want to schedule a call, you can scan this QR code. And then we can have a chat to discuss your specific situation and how we can best set this up to make sure that you don't have the bank on your back later on, requiring you to sell the house, and to make sure that everything is taken care of correctly. So when you want to rent out your house, almost always you have to refinance to an investment mortgage. Yeah.
Thank you. I already answered question for Marco. He was asking about Property Protection Act, that each municipality has different regulations. I also shared our article where you can find was value per municipality. So,
so basically there's a cap for municipality. They say, okay, sure, if you want to invest in real estate, for instance, in Amsterdam, you can. But then the WOZ value, so the value that the municipality gives the property, has to be at a certain amount. So in Amsterdam, that's 533,000 euros. So if you buy a house, it has to be a WOZ value over 533 to be able to rent it out. Now, when you can look it up on our website, or a Purchase Protection Act, Mr. Mortgage will be the first one to find right there. And then you can see what the ranges are that you have to consider there. But there are definitely possibilities. Just know what the limitations are per municipality. Yeah.
The next question is, what's the rent capping based on point system?
Sorry. So yes, as of next year, so basically you have two different types of renting out your property, or two different markets, if you will. You have the open market, and you have social housing. Social housing that is designed for people with lower income still being able to find a property to rent. And there's a point system, and your property can get points for square meters, for energy rating, if you have a garden or not, what location are you in, what is the quality of the property, and all of that gets different amounts of points. And as of next year, the point amount has increased for social housing. So that will increase to, top of my head, 186 points. That if you're 186 points and lower, then you're automatically in social housing, meaning there's a cap of the maximum amount of rental income that you can get. When you're at that 186, then the rental income max will be about 808 euros per month, I think. So when you're within that range, then automatically renting it out for investment purposes doesn't really give you the result anymore, or the return on investment that really makes sense when it comes to your goal to make a profit. So then it makes more sense to invest in properties that have a point system higher, because then there's no cap on your rental income apart from just people wanting to pay it, of course. So it's important to know. So it's very good. It's a very good question. So that as of next year, that will be the range. Any other rulings? Because that undoubtedly will be questions later on as well. How the government is going to rule about temporary contracts, rental contracts. And there's nothing sane about that to say right now. So as of last week, we were waiting until the government was coming up with the final rulings, but still then we had to wait for new laws, and that takes time as well. So for the new laws to actually be in effect, easily will take 1 year. That was last week. Now this week the government has collapsed, so there will be elections in November. So first we have till November till elections come. Then a lot of all these political parties will this will undoubtedly be part of the campaign as well. Then new government has to be formed, and then they have to set up new rules and regulations. So I wouldn't be surprised if it takes easily 2 years for new rules and regulations to be in effect. And so we can, when we know, we'll inform you about it, and then you can adjust your strategy accordingly.
Thank you. Claudia is asking, you pay no transfer tax on a newly built, but will you pay VAT? Or
VAT? So no, well, yes and no. So there's not a VAT, not necessarily, but the ground that the property is situated on, that is where you pay VAT over. But it is when you see the price on the website of the developer, there is 9 out of 10 times will already be included this VAT. So yes, you do pay it, but it's already included in the purchase price, and it's only VAT on the grounds that the property is situated on, not on the construction itself.
Thank you. I think this question is going to be applicable for buy-to-let and I guess residential mortgages. How to take benefit of decreasing interest rates? Which type of mortgage you advise, fixed or variable one?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, fixed or variable. So it really depends on where your comfort level is now as well. When it comes to decreasing interest rates, the expectation is that will happen will gradually happen over the next, let's say, 2, 3, 4 years. Banks are happy to increase interest rates. Banks are more hesitant to suddenly decrease the interest rate significantly. So that will go gradually. So we expect a decrease in the interest rate over a term of 2, 3, 4 years significantly. And what significantly means is that the interest rate will drop by 0.5 to 1, maybe 1.2%. So that's about the range that we expect the decrease to happen. So then should you go for variable or fixed rate? Variable, sure, if you are willing to check the interest rates every couple of months and adjust if required. If you're up to doing that, then by all means that can make sense as well. Now, if you don't want to bother with that and just want to, okay, sure, I want to have passive income, I don't want to think about it too much and just focus on my own day-to-day life, then I suggest to fix your interest rate for, and then maybe consider terms of 3 to 5 years, for instance, because then you can benefit from a potentially lower interest rate later on. So it really depends on your preferences and your look on your financials and how comfortable you are with a potential fluctuating monthly payment and checking in every now and again.
One more question about tenant rights, and I think it's also very related with the one with the new government. I've heard there will be some changes in legislation according to which you can never ask your tenants to leave, and they can stay as long as they want. Can you?
Yeah, well, exactly. That's the case. That wasn't consideration. Now, my colleague likes to use a proverb, in Dutch proverb. In Dutch it's called de soep wordt nooit zo heet gegeten als die wordt opgediend. Now, in translated to English, that basically means you never eat the soup as hot as it's served. Basically, what this means is, sure, they talk a big game about new tenant rights and so on. We have to wait and see what it actually results in, and especially now with the elections coming up. So first off, before the government collapse, it wasn't sure what the situation would be yet, which means that even if there would be a suggestion law, then it has to be passed through Parliament first, and then it has to be changed into a law. So usually that takes quite a bit of time, so easily about a year. Now we're in the situation that a new government has to be formed, so it takes even longer. So when it comes to the current situation, actually there's more time now to before this new regulations will kick in. So there's nothing final known yet, and if anything, when it's considered, it takes a long time for those laws to be implemented, usually. So that's where we are right now.
Mm-hmm. Also, the next question, which I can answer as well, like, does this cover notary charges? I believe it was our fees, which is.
Oh yeah, our fee does not cover notary charges because the notary is a different company than we are. But when you let's see, when I showed you here, there we go. The fees here, you can see the notary charges right there. In this line, you can see the notary charges. So it's not part of our fee because the notary is a separate company in and of itself.
Mm-hmm. So the next question is, can you buy multiple properties, buy-to-let properties?
Sure.
And if yes, is it advisable to form a company to manage multiple properties, and also from tax perspective? I think it's very personal question, but maybe you can just.
I do understand it. So basically the thing is, you can buy multiple properties. That's not a problem, as long as your income allows it and you want to do that investment. And then up to 3 properties, you're considered still a consumer. If you buy for more than the 3 properties, then you're considered a professional investor. Does it have, and then it could make a difference to set up a company to do that? Not always. It really depends on your personal situation, indeed. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. The next question for buy-to-lets, I also can answer almost is there any age benefit while borrowing for a mortgage? For
age benefit? Oh, buy-to-let, no. No, when investing in real estate, there's no age benefits, or also no downside. So it doesn't matter if you're 18 buying in real estate investment, or if you're 82. You're all good to invest in real estate if you want to. That being said, the duration of your mortgage is 30 years. And the remarkable thing is, in the Netherlands, it's not considered. So even if you're 100 and you want to buy a property and take on a mortgage for 30 years, it's all good. Sure, the bank also understands that you might not be 130, but who knows? So there's no cap there.
Mm-hmm. Newly built apartments also posted on Funda. We can also share, I will share, you will receive an email from us after the webinar. I can include a few links where you can find it. But
they will be. They are usually noted on Funda as well, but there are also other websites that are more specified on new build. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Any advice for cash buyers? I don't currently work, so I wouldn't not tick the traditional mortgage application boxes.
Yeah. Yeah, cash buyers. If you have the funds to do that, and you want to invest in real estate, and that matches your financial your investment portfolio, by all means, and then you don't need a mortgage. So you can just make sure that your financial setup allows you and it matches your investment strategy.
Mm-hmm. How to apply and calculate mortgage if I don't have a job? I am an entrepreneur and I work for myself.
Then you do have a job. So yeah, then you're self-employed. So then we that's also something we work with. So it's expats, internationals, but also when you're self-employed, the only requirement is that your company is registered in the Netherlands. But then if it is, there's this similar possibilities as being employed for a company with an employment contract. So not necessarily a big difference there.
In terms of costs, the conclusion seems to be that newly builds are just cheaper in general. Does this mean that they have a higher return on investment over time?
Well, yeah, that's really hard to. All properties are different. There's almost the same as people. So yes, the thing is that new builds. They can have a better return on investment because also you have a higher increase in value usually. But the only thing is that you have to wait 2 years to be able to rent out the property. So if you can withstand that, and if you can withstand the additional cost that you have until you can rent out the property, it makes a lot of sense to do so because you don't have to pay the 10% transfer tax. Is it automatically always the case that new build is a better investment? No, not necessarily, but strictly speaking, it is more interesting based on what the overview that we showed you just now. Yeah.
1 second.
Sure.
All right. So if you buy a landed property comprising a main house to live in and annex or a smaller house on the same plot, is it necessary to have a buy-to-let mortgage for the annex, or can it all be under the homeowner's mortgage? So basically, as I understood, like, so yeah, you got.
Yeah, I think so. So you have a home with a nice garden, and then in that garden or a plot, so a piece of ground, and on that in that piece of ground, you've also built something else, and that's where somebody lives in there. That is considered that you're renting out part of your home, which you can do, but then make sure that your that the contract that you have with the tenant is correct. And what I mean by that is when there are tenant rights. So after 1 or 2 years that a tenant lives in the property, they have rights, and you cannot just kick them out. So this means that if you then want to sell your house and the tenant has rights to keep living in the property, then sure, you can sell your house, but then the person living in the annex, in the additional building that you have made, has rights to live there. So then you have to sell the house with that person living in there, and then that usually has an impact on the value of the property. So then that can be arranged with, for instance, an eviction clause in your contract, which says, okay, sure, if I want to sell my house, I give you 6 months to find a new place. That is based on the current rules and regulations. That is still possible. Of course, we have to wait and see in about a year or two what the new rules will be. But currently that is a possibility. So it would be within your current residential mortgage that you would rent out a room, and that's then a building on your plot.
Thank you. So is refinancing the house after you get a residential mortgage fairly costly, or would you recommend to do buy-to-let straight away? I think this question is related with the previous one, if someone wants to do for the shorter term, as I understand.
So refinancing, if that's costly, if anything, I think I would say, and again, why I say I think is because every situation is different. But usually it makes more sense to buy the house for your personal residency, live there. And then when you want to change it into an investment mortgage, then do the refinancing. Because the refinancing, for one, you don't have the 10.4% transfer tax when you've lived in the property first. So when you're planning to live in a property for, let's say, 2 years, and then refinance it, by all means, first take an investment mortgage, residential mortgage, sorry. First take a residential mortgage and then change it into an investment mortgage. That is when you are planning to live in the property first, definitely do that. That will save you money.
Thank you. So what happens if you have a buy-to-let property and mortgage, and then you move overseas? Can you keep the mortgage and even renew it at the end of a term, or would you have to sell it?
So at this time, when you'll stay within the EU, no problem to, there are possibilities to keep the property. That's not necessarily a problem. If you go outside of the EU, at this time, banks require you to repay the loan. And again, there are sufficient people that just don't and see how they get on. And if the bank finds out, then they will sell the property. But you, when you are moving abroad, you're actively against the rules and regulations of the bank. So then you would have to repay the mortgage, meaning that you do it out of savings or you're selling the property. That's all the same for the bank. But if you move outside of the EU, at this time, banks don't have the option for investment mortgages. And I say at this time more than once, because we see that the rules and regulations for investment mortgages are being more liberal as the days and months and years go by. So for instance, last year, it wasn't possible yet to keep your mortgage when you moved inside within the EU. So there's a fair expectation that in the next coming years that you would be able to keep the investment mortgage when moving abroad outside of the EU as well.
This question is going to be just a summary of
Sure.
what we discussed. So basically, someone wants to confirm. So every time you move from buy-to-let or residential mortgage, you need to change the types. If you want to, for example, if I want to live in, so I need to have residential mortgage. If I want to rent it out, I need to change it and have buy-to-let.
Yes.
And someone is asking, is it particular in the Netherlands? I believe so, because in some other countries, I guess there are different regulations, and there are more to rent your apartment without switching mortgages.
Yeah, in the Netherlands, that it's exactly as you mentioned is correct.
Yeah. And any specific in case if I want to invest in holiday houses, vacation parks, for example?
Yeah,
I
no,
think
that's
works the same.
Yeah, basically it works the same. Yeah. The only thing is that check in with the vacation park, for instance, how they consider short stay or longer stay, and also that's something that we will consider with the banks because it's a shorter stay, so you won't have a long-term contract. But that's something that we can consider in our calculations. But there are definitely possibilities there. Yeah.
I will also share in our email our blog about investing in a holiday home.
Oh, yeah, there you go.
Yeah. Because it's quite popular.
Yeah.
Or even holiday homes abroad. There are these options as well.
Yeah, about that, banks finance properties within the Netherlands, Dutch banks. But if you want to finance somewhere else and you have a property here, we can look into increasing your current mortgage to finance something abroad. So that's in a nutshell. But indeed, check the blog.
Someone is, I think, in general, asking a question about what is the differences between annuity and linear payment method, and which is the best?
That is very particular. Basically, a very, very short explanation. Annuity mortgage means that you have a level monthly payment. So as long as your interest stays the same, your monthly payment will stay the same. And a linear mortgage starts higher. So then you start about 20% higher, and then you have decreasing monthly payments. But the annuity, the linear mortgage drops down below the annuity mortgage in monthly payments after 13 years. So the first 13 years, the annuity mortgage is lower. and after 13 years, the linear mortgage would be lower. That's the baseline. Annuity makes the most sense usually with an investment mortgage, because then you have level monthly payments. So therefore, the return on your investments is stable as well based on the rental income that you get. But again, it's different per person, so it really is specific to your situation. And feel free to schedule a call so we can discuss what actually makes sense to you.
Mm-hmm. The last 4 or 5 questions, Robin. Not much to go. Is there any minimum period to stay in residential home before changing to investment mortgage? I think it's, again, depends on your situation.
It depends on your situation, but I think if I understand, the underlying question is actually, so let's buy a house for a residential property, pay 2% transfer tax, and then change it to an investment mortgage and pay 10%, so to avoid the 10%, which I understand that's your consideration. The thing is that for the mortgage, it doesn't matter how long you stay in the property before you move it into an investment mortgage. For the tax authorities, they used to say 6 months, but now they've removed that requirement. So it's more to the better judgment of the tax authorities person itself. So then they want to, why they do this is because they understand that people want to prevent having to pay the 10.4%. So then they will do a research to see, hey, what is the consideration that you actually moved from residential to investment? So they might be able to reclaim the 10.4% anyway. So I wouldn't necessarily suggest buying a house as a residential and then changing to an investment mortgage to prevent the 10.4, because in time, if they want to, they will catch on. So there's not really a minimum time. I would say about 1.5 years, 2 years, then it makes sense that you want to refinance. That is more like likely that that's actually a situation. So be careful what you get yourself into. Just consider it's about 1.5 years and that you actually live and work, live and be registered at the property.
Mm-hmm. And the question related with the previous question about moving outside the EU, is this also applicable for the UK? You need to sell the property.
No, so based on an unpopular vote in the UK, it's not part of the EU anymore. So at this time, it's also not considered as part of the EU for the banks.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Just a general question: does foreign student loans affect the mortgage?
Well, yes, but it's important to check your personal situation to what extent it will impact.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. And the last one, I think. So if you move abroad within EU and you want to keep your apartment and convert to buy to let, do you become liable for capital gain tax on appreciation for entire time? Own the apartment only since it became an investment property, or not at all? This is
yes, I understand. I think I understand. So your property, you own the property in the Netherlands and you make profit here in the Netherlands as well. So you will be subject to the Dutch tax ruling there as well. So will be considered an asset for you, and there's not necessarily a capital gains tax. So when you sell the house, and the profit that you make won't be taxed. That's not happening here in the Netherlands, at least. But you will be subject to the Dutch tax regulation. So I think that kind of answers the question.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Robin. I think this is it. I'm also sharing a few resources in the chat.
I see one question coming in just now from Sophie Kolbach. Thanks for everybody. Thanks for your questions, by the way. Mm-hmm. If you're eligible to secure any mortgage, so also a buy-to-let mortgage when you don't have a source of income as being employed or self-employed, unfortunately, no. The bank, investment mortgage banks always want to know that you have income from being employed or self-employed as well. So that's not the case, but it's in other cases there are definitely possibilities. Yeah, so that's where we are. Yeah. Egle, do we have any questions left for now?
No, I think I answered most of it, and I'm sharing just a few resources.
So in any case, any questions you might have later on. So if there's questions that they're more specific to your situation, or if there's anything that you want to know later on, feel free to schedule a call using the QR code that you can see right here. Then we can have a call with you about 10-15 minutes. It's an introductory call, and then we can take forward to the financial analysis later on. And you can always go to our website as well, mrmortgage.nl, and you can see schedule a free call button right there. And then you can schedule, obviously, a free call, and then we'll just have a chat with you to discuss with you what your financial situation is, what your personal situation is, and what the best fit would be for you right there. And I think then, Karim, thank you again for hosting. First off, wait a minute, Egle, thank you for arranging the Q&A. Karim, thank you so much for hosting this again. It was very nice being here, and thank you for everybody that's joining. I hope your lunch was good, and best of luck with the rest of your day, and enjoy the sunshine, of course.
Thanks so much, everyone. Have a lovely day. Thank you, Egle and Robin, and all of you who attended. Have a lovely afternoon.
Bye, guys.
Bye, guys.